Hello
Hi there,
again, Brian.
hello again, Hayley, and hello, Michael Vita.
Hello to both of you. Yes.
Michael, Hayley, Michael spent his life on Broadway as a singer and dancer, and he's been around the world. The reason I suggested that he join us is because he's also a deeply spiritual man who knows the hero's journey, has made the hero's journey. And for me, he represents what I want to be when I'm his age. I'm 74. Michael, you're 82. And he lives in gratitude. And I thought maybe we could talk a bit about that today. So Hayley, meet Michael. Michael,
Nice
Hayley.
to meet you.
Hi, Hayley.
And where in the world are you, Michael? Are you in Florida or?
I don't know. You tell me. I'm in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Okay.
Paradise, Oakland Park.
Lovely, lovely.
I live in a resort that used to be a resort. So I have 2 pools, 3 tennis courts. And if I open these blinds, which will make me very, very light, I see palms, fronds dancing in the wind.
How beautiful.
Yeah.
It's quite beautiful. I'm very grateful. Gratitude turns everything into more than enough.
Indeed. And how did you become so grateful?
Oh, well, I'd like to start this discussion with brackets of 2 proverbs. I guess they are. The first one is from Søren Kierkegaard, who is a Norwegian philosopher. And he says that life must be understood backwards, but lived forward. And the next one is by Joseph Campbell. And he says, I'm retired, of course. And he says, retirement is entering the sphere of appreciation and enjoyment while relaxing in the wonder of it all. So I hope to start with the first one and end with the second one, and I'll tell you as much as you want to know. I am grateful. I think that was your question. I am grateful because my father died when he was 36 of a heart attack. I am 82. I am more than double his age. I am grateful for those extra years. I survived scarlet fever when I was 7. I survived the AIDS epidemic, and I've survived so far the COVID epidemic. I have never been drafted into the army into a dangerous situation. And I am living in everything that I think that I've ever manifested in my life. And so there you are.
Well done.
I didn't do it. The universe did it. Spirit did it.
Well, we have to be present to receive it and accept it.
And absolutely.
And Michael's fully present in my experience, Hayley. He is a voracious reader, and he sends me things every day. I mean, and when we meet for coffee every other week, he brings 8 books for me to donate to the Stonewall Museum. I don't know anyone who reads as much as Michael does. And, but he's a great, for me, and we talk about this, that when you're in a relationship, you have a very different time opportunities than when you're single. You know, even listening to a video that somebody sends me, I have to find a space in the house that I can listen to it or impose it on Ray, who may not be interested in it. Where if I send something to Michael, he can play it anytime, he wants, because we don't talk much about that, the difference between being single and coupled. We always talk about being coupled as the ideal, but there are many things about being single that I think are wonderful.
I'm a fan. I'm single, and I like being single, but I also do feel the lack of not having like that companion, that partnership.
Yeah.
And I think it's, it very much clouds into the aloneness. And what is the definition of lonely and aloneness? And I don't think it's necessarily lonely being single. I think it's a fortunate place to be because you are very much forced to sit with yourself and get really comfortable with yourself.
Mhm.
And then you
Mhm.
get onto the other side of that, which is a lovely Warsan Shire quote. I'll only have you if you're sweeter than my solitude.
Mhm.
And to try and find a partner that is sweeter than my solitude, that's pretty high standards.
Mhm.
Well, Hayley, don't tell Brian, but I don't read all the books that I give him. I'm just interested that the titles attract me. And so sometimes I read half of them, sometimes I read just the back. And I have another book for you.
I'm sure you
It's-
do.
Yes. I think that we are single people who are happy being single, have the benefit of entertaining themselves and being comfortable with themselves. I have so many things that I do. I don't know where the days go. And I'm grateful for that. I've been with a partner. I've had a partner for 18 years and then one for 6 years, that meaningful partnerships. And I have been single now for a good many years. Since 1992, I think.
Hmm.
And so I'm like you. I have projects all over the place, and a great support team of friends. I go out to lunch probably 3 times a week. I don't know. Maybe they like to watch me eat. I'm not sure, but
Well, you have lady friends too that you go
oh,
out.
I have lady friends. Well, I lived in San Francisco for a while, and it was just too gay for me. I don't. Maybe I'm offending some of your listeners. It's just too much. I need the balance,
Mhm.
and so I search the balance. And I have a group of ladies who we meet every month. We didn't in the pandemic, but we started again, and they're all the same age, and they're divorced or widowed or single, and we meet and we talk about us, them, everything. We don't have any restrictions, and we go to a different restaurant every month. And but I'm the only I'm the only man at the table. And when we were eating at a wonderful restaurant called Gianni's, which had a round table, after the table next to us, there was a man and a woman there. I suppose they were married. The man came over and said, "How do you do it? How did you do this?" And I said, "Do what?" And he said, "You're the only man, and there's 6 ladies here." And they all chimed in and said, "Of course, you know what that means."
Did they say you were gay?
No,
Oh,
no, that doesn't come up. It's just I'm a human being,
yeah.
which makes
Well,
it good.
the man sitting next to you assumed you were straight and had all these women to yourself.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Michael,
Testosterone.
Go ahead, Hayley. You go, Hayley.
I was going to ask you, Michael, when you're around your friends and you're connecting at your lunches, one may assume that that can get very gossipy. Do you gossip at your lunches?
No,
How important is that to not gossip?
I don't know. I mean, my friends are so close to me that we share intimacies. We share subjects that belong to just that person and myself. So it doesn't interest me to tell anybody else, except if they're ill or they're in trouble or if we could help them. But no, gossip, you know, Brian just wrote a new book. Is that gossip? I don't know. That's just news.
No, I don't like gossip either. But I do take stories that people tell and write about them. But hey, Hayley, going back, and Michael, going back, if I can, just 1 second. Ray and I did just celebrate our 46th anniversary yesterday. And was it yesterday or the day before? Yeah, maybe it was the 4th. And I posted, you know, the night before, I put some pictures of us up from when we first got together and now, and a couple in between. And I just wrote thoughts, which is what I do. I just wrote some thoughts, and and counting all the different sites I put it, there's like 1,600 people, either liked or put a heart on, and there were 500 comments. And so, and most of the comments, or many of them, were from other couples who were grateful for what they felt was a description of their relationship too. So this whole thing about couple and single, I think it has a lot to do with our personalities. I want to be in relationship, and I'm not prepared. If Ray happens to die before me, I'm going to count on people like you to help me figure out how to live alone, because, I haven't lived alone ever. Uh, so it takes some getting used to, I think.
Well, I always say to couples who are in trouble, think twice, because it's better with than without.
Yeah.
And it either works or it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I
Michael, can I?
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I want to talk to you about your faith. This is about the hero's journey and about your career. When you got involved with dance and singing, were you aware? Did you have a consciousness of new thought or any spirituality?
Only when I look back and understand my life backwards. And I'll tell you a few things, if I may. I believe that when you are in the state of living in the state of grace, and there's no objections or obstacles in your way, you are guided to the next step. And it started with me when I was in grammar school. I was the top third of my class, so I wasn't a dumb student. And I took the test for several high schools. And I didn't get one of them, while all of my classmates were celebrating that they were going to high schools. And my mother, who was single at the time, who was a widow, happened to be working at a theatrical agency called, oh dear, I forgot it. Well, anyway, she was with a theatrical agency, and one of the people in her office said, "Why don't you take your son around the corner to the High School of Performing Arts?" And she said, "Okay." And within 2 weeks of my graduation, I was accepted into the dance department. Now, I don't do any of this alone, but that is the spirit telling me what's the next step. I had no idea what this was all about, and I just went. And that led to summer jobs, summer stock in resorts where people really went to go meet their mates, if they could find one, young ladies and men. And one of them was Green Mansions, which was very popular at the time. And they had many, many, I would say, up and coming comedians and singers and dancers. And one of the gentlemen there was Stan Koch, who was an opera singer. They had operas and comedies and dance recitals and everything. And I became friendly with Stan Koch. And when I came back to New York and I graduated, I got a job in hair publishing. And I was going to be a publisher. I was going to be, which is why I like to make things in cardboard and stuff and books. And Stan Koch's partner at the time called me and said, "Go over and audition for Bye Bye Birdie." And I said, "Oh no, I've got a job. I'm doing fine." I was getting $68 a week. It was wonderful. And I was being groomed to put a book together. And it was hair and accessories, handbags and accessories, that kind of magazine. And he said, "Get your ass over there." I said, "But he said, "Get your ass over there." And I went and I got Bye Bye Birdie. And that started, 35 years of stage work. I was a 19-year-old, blonde, blue-eyed teenager, and it carried me through to an overweight, bald character actor with some of the most productive people in theater. Gower Champion, Bob Fosse, Hal Prince,
These are all people
George
you work.
Abbott. These are all giants in the theater.
They sure are.
And I went from one show to the other, to the other, to the other, except for the times that I left and went to London. And I had the good fortune of living in London for 5 years, because at that time you had to decide whether you were an English citizen or an American citizen. And I said, well, I don't know. And my family said, you can't, you must come home. And I came home. Well, I don't know. These are going to be long stories. How I got to London was that from 19, I had a relationship with an older man. And I had an opportunity to go on a USO tour. And we went to Europe, Asia, Africa, everywhere for 5 months. And I was 19, and there were 6 of us. And I was them and they were me, if you understand. I was 19 years old, singing to 19-year-old soldiers. And it was an experience that I relive all the time. And so when I got back after 5 months, the gentleman that I was with said, I'd like a change. And I said, oh, okay. I don't want to be with anyone who doesn't want to be with me. And so I didn't know what to do. However, the universe gave me a chance to go to London and perform with at that time, a movie and stage star, Dolores Gray, at the casino, at the Talk of the Town, which is like the Radio City Music Hall. And because I had nothing to come back to, I stayed, and they couldn't understand it. But I met Nicholas Drumgoole, the drama critic for the London Times, Nicholas Georgiardis, who designed Romeo and Juliet for Margot Fonteyn and Rudolf Nureyev, Russ Conway, who was my mentor, who allowed me to make a record there, which was my dream, and Peter Farmer, who I lived with, who was a contemporary of Hockney. And I met all of these people just because, well, I think I was an American, so everybody wanted to see an American, you know. But then I made friends with them. And I lived in a flat that had, on Launceston Place, that had the landlady and her boyfriend on the first 2 floors, and then Nicholas Georgiardis' studio on the second, the third, and then the bathrooms on the 4th, and then Peter and I on the 5th. And I would watch this magic happen, that Peter Farmer would sit in front of a bare window with one bare light on top of him, and it was like inspiration was coming down on him to do his designs and his portraits. And there are 4 large paintings of me, abstract nudes, hanging in houses that can afford them because they're priceless now. And so I had that experience.
And you don't have one.
No, he asked me, take anyone you want. And I thought, no, I don't really want one. And I wish that I had one now.
Yeah, of course.
So the universe gave me that opportunity. I didn't know that I was going there. And when
Michael, when you say the universe, are you saying God, or what?
I'm saying God, I'm saying the universal intelligence, I'm saying the universal mind, whatever it is,
So it guided you from your youth?
Intuition, yes. I didn't know this, but this is how I look back on my journey. Now, I came back and I met Danny, and we how do you explain that here is this 23-year-old Texan on a week's vacation in New York City, and here I am being pursued by the hairdresser in one of the shows that I got into, who asked me over and over and over again to have a drink with him. And I finally said, okay. And one Saturday, no particular Saturday, but one Saturday, I said, okay. And I found myself in a very uncomfortable position in a gay bar in the Village. And I was so uncomfortable that I walked to the window and looked out of the moon at the moonlit sidewalk. And along comes these three young gentlemen. I was 25. These three young gentlemen deliberating whether to come in, and I get a beam on one of them, and I am willing them to come in. Come in, I say, come in. And they do come in, and they get their drinks, and they sit in a triangle. They stand in a triangle by the bar, looking at each other. And I catch the eye of the first one, and I say, no, thank you. Catch the eye of the taller one, and I say, and I catch the eye of this blue-eyed, rosy-cheeked, wavy-haired angel. And I motion for him to come closer. And when he comes closer, I said, my name is Michael. Would you like to take a walk? And he says, my name is Danny, and I'd love to take a walk. And we lived together from that moment for 18 years. Now, how do you explain that serendipity? How do you explain that? That's love at first sight. That's why did I say yes on that Saturday and not the Saturday before? Mm-hmm. So I am guided. I feel that I have been guided to step into over the next threshold.
Hayley, what do you think of that?
I think it's surrendering, and I think it's saying exactly yes to the right opportunity. And I was going to ask you, Patsy Rodenberg wrote a book. She's an acting coach, and she wrote a book called The Second Circle, which she believes that actors are always in the second circle, which is a very giving and receiving energy, hence why people are so, mesmerized by actors. And, you mentioned that, like, looking back, you can see all of these wonderful synchronicities and there's no explanation for it. Do you think that there is something innately about you that holds you in that second circle where you've always been in that energy of giving and receiving without having to really work at it?
You have touched on a subject that I have thought about but never said anything about to anyone. I believe that an actor has to be in the moment, has to live in the moment, because if he's distracted, he's off on a tangent and doesn't know what comes next in this make-believe world. So in this make-believe world, I am living in the moment. And I guess living in the moment, August Gold says living in the moment. I've just read Franz Fraser's,
Jan
Fraser's book. There is nothing more but the moment. Mm-hmm. And I believe what you have just explained is the answer to awareness and surrendering. Because I have to, yes. So yes, I do believe that. And I'm very fortunate for that, because otherwise I would be an engineer.
And is it something that you worked at, or is it just something that like looking back, you're kind of like, I was always kind of like that?
It has always happened. I mean, I have other instances. How can I be here? I took care of my mother for 7 years. She was 96 when she passed away. And I could have gone anywhere. I could have gone to San Diego, which I loved because I lived there for a while. But I said, no, I want Fort Lauderdale because it's a haven for elderly gay men. And I came here, and 8 years ago, I knew no one. And now I have a circle of friends that not only, how can I say it, not only look after me, but help me financially. Mm-hmm. And my sister says to me, do you have holes in your clothes? And I said, no, I just talk. I don't know. I went to a lunch the other day with a good friend, longtime friend, and he got up to go back to work, and there was $100 bill on the table. And I said, oh, Tom, you left $100 bill on the table. And he said, no, that's for you. Now, how could you not be grateful for that?
That happens often to
Not.
Michael, Haley. Haley, people give Michael checks. They do, and he doesn't ask for it. A friend was going to take him out to dinner, and he said he'd like the eggplant parmesan, but it was too much. And so the guy give you a check for $1,500 so you could have eggplant parmesan anytime you wanted? I mean, this is amazing. I want to know his friends. I want to meet these people.
Well, I think, my question to that, Michael, is how did you get into the energy of receiving that?
How did I get into the receiving of that?
The energy of receiving that kind of support and nurturing.
You're very good, Hayley, because you're bringing up all these memories. When my mother came to live with me, she was 89, and I left her whole circle of friends, her support system, her family. And I said, we're going to celebrate your 90th birthday in the Bronx, which is where I took her from. And we had a family. My mother's been married 3 times because all 3 of her husbands died of 1 old age and 2 of heart trouble. And there were people there, and there were 2 families. The 3rd family was a little separated. And so I said, I'd like to take a picture of each family for my mother's album. So my sister and my cousin said, oh, we'll help you. And I said, no, I'll do it. Thank you. And I didn't realize at that moment, we took the pictures, by the way, and I assembled everyone. I didn't realize at that moment that I stifled their efforts of showing their love for me, for my mother, for my family. And I will never do that again, ever.
Wonderful perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only know that because I'm looking back. Thank you, Soren Kierkegaard.
Indeed.
Haley, Michael and I met because he admired my hair from behind. I'd sit in front of him at these presentations by August Gold, and he finally told me, "You have beautiful hair."
Haley, can you understand why?
Well, but I think you do have a good head of hair. Like anybody, even with hair, would think you have a good hair.
Yeah.
You mean Brian?
Brian, I mean, you have
Yes.
wonderful.
Have you seen the back of it?
Well, I haven't paid that much attention to the
wavy.
back of Brian.
You turn around and let her see the back of your hair if you can.
Oh, you got to go further down.
And it's gorgeous. It's white, it's gray, it's white, and it's dark. It's wonderful.
Okay,
That's okay.
So enough about me. Haley, I love your last 2 questions. I think you're spot on about, when did you learn to receive? Because it's really hard for many of us. I have a very difficult time receiving.
I do too. It's one of my greatest lessons.
I struggle with it. I struggle with compliments. I struggle with people bringing gifts. I struggle with it because I want it to be about them.
Mm-hmm.
Not,
Well, I'll tell you, at this age, I walk with a walker. I have a roller walker. I have cataracts. I've had cataracts done, and I have hearing aids, which are a month old. So I am well past the threshold of elderhood. But you have no idea how many people ask to help me. Can I hold the door for you? Can I get your groceries? Can I put the groceries in your car? It's amazing how many people are helpful. And what I say to them is, thank you very much. Not now, maybe in a year. Or may someone help you when you are in the same situation that I am. Because that is their expression of love.
Indeed. And I think, we have to walk the talk if we're going to be people and proponents of love. We have to be, allowing humans to express love.
Yeah, I told Hayley the story, I think, about coming out of a UPS store, and I, walked to my car and I saw somebody coming down the parking lot, with big boxes in his hand. So I went back to the door and opened it up, and he said, "Can I buy you a cup of coffee?" No, I'm just happy to open the door for you. He wasn't used to it. Sometimes we used to give, Coke. We always give people who work around us, drinks, the landscapers, there's drinks. So I offered a drink to a neighbor, and he said, "Well, what do you want for this? I mean, what is it that you want?" I said, "I don't want anything. I want the pleasure of giving you a Coke." So some people have trouble receiving. And Michael, I think one of the reasons people give to you is not that you don't ask for anything, but you have a disposition that it draws people. And I think that's what Hayley talked about with the second circle. I haven't read that book, Hayley, but there's something about Michael that attracts a sense of peace. He's non-threatening. His aura is welcoming.
It's, and I think it's an enigma. And I think that's how you can get to the, some of the stuff that's happened to you, you can't explain it. Because, the universe is an enigma. We don't fully understand it, nor do we really take as much time to understand it. But I do think that there's levels to that, because there's levels to people feeling comfortable and wanting to be around a person. And then there's levels, the level that Michael's at, where it's more of you're in that wonderful synchronistic giving and receiving, regardless of what that energy looks like. And I feel, for me, that feels like that's a big step. And so it's amazing to me. And I think wonderful too, to see an actual living proof of this, that you can get into that point of that symbiotic giving and receiving, which is what we're supposed to be doing as humans. I don't think, we should be asking for money. It's a non-verbal exchange of, we don't understand why this happens, and it just happens. Why question it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, prosperity is an umbrella for having enough money, having enough friends, having a roof over your head. It's just living in prosperity, which is I don't know if Hayley, Brian told you, but I came to Fort Lauderdale 8 years ago, and just by accident found the Science of Mind, this Center for Spiritual Living. I had been singing in a church choir in Miami Beach, a 30-member church choir that we sang in Italy and France, and we went all over singing. And I wanted that feeling of camaraderie and service, even though it was a Catholic church, which we can get into that another time.
Or not.
So I was searching for that feeling. And I came here into this apartment, which welcomed me the moment I sat and looked at it. I told the rental agencies, leave me be for 5 minutes. And I had everything taken care of. It was comfortable. And I moved in November 15th. And I took the time from November 15th to Christmas Eve to look for a choir that I felt comfortable with. And I went to community churches and Catholic churches and Protestant churches all over this area. And I never felt comfortable or wanted to join them. And Christmas Eve, I'm riding along and I see a sign that says Christmas carols, 7 p.m. And I said, well, I'm not doing anything. It's Christmas Eve. I'll just go there. And I walked into the Center for Spiritual Living on Northeast 26th Street. And again, I never left. I became involved in the workings of it. I was, I think I'm a networker because I helped it get from the 26th Street location to the new location, which is now 4849 North Dixie Highway. I helped that. I helped that. And now, of course, the old church is burnt down and there's nothing there. They've demolished it. So that is erased, but it's still with me. So,
Michael, tell Hayley about Mr. So What? Because I think it's spiritual. I think it's really spiritual.
Hayley, these silly things become so important to other people.
It's the simple stuff.
It's very important to me, very important. And if he's hanging in my bedroom and I see him every night or every morning, I would take him off, but he's much too big. He's about, so big. And it's a portrait of a peasant in the 19th century. And when I was on the USO show, we went to Madrid, to Sevilla, Spain, and we went to a flea market. And as I'm leaving, this painting is flapping, saying, "Take me, take me, take me," without a frame. And I looked back and I said, "Okay, I'll take you." And it was this man standing with his arms folded, a beard and long hair, looking like he just, well, if I may say so, made an unpleasant odor in an elevator. And I rolled him up and carried him for about 5 months and took him home and framed him. And I call him my Mr. So What? Because every time I got a show, which was, 14 of them, I'd say, "Mr. So What? I got a show." And he'd go, "So what?" I'd say, "Well, I'm not employed. I don't have any jobs." And he'd say, "So what?" And I had him appraised. He's worth about $2,000. He was painted when there were so many painters that there weren't enough models, so they painted peasants on the street. He's painted by a left-handed painter, because they can tell by the strokes. I'm left-handed. I'm very happy to be a left-handed, by the way. And he's got a V in his forehead, like I have got a V in my forehead.
Where's your V, Michael? Oh,
and he's been with me and everyone who comes in here, I introduce him to Mr. So What? This is Brian. Brian is a writer, a teacher, a philosopher. So what?
So what?
And so he grounds me. He's a grounding for me.
But you ground you, Michael. You're the one who named him So What?
It's
so the meaning of so what means forget it and move on.
Move on, be present. And one of my very first spiritual teachers, she was a Buddhist, and she would say "so what" all the time. So what?
Oh, is that right?
And and it was one of those things where I was just like, "What do you mean, so what?" She'd be like, "So what?" I'm like, "I know, but something." And it is very grounding, the so what to the good and the bad. So what?
Isn't that hysterical that your teacher and Michael have the same? And what's the synchronicity of? I mean, how does that happen?
I think it's because the simplistic of the teachings.
Yeah.
They get repeated again and again and again, and it's the same, the same truth. The universal truths are one truth.
It is. Truth, and the one truth is in the moment.
It's in the moment.
The moment is all that you need, all that you have, all that you want.
And that's the secret.
Yes.
It is.
It really is the secret. I have another synchronistic story for you. When I was in Italy, I just randomly, wasn't in my plans, went to Tropea. I was on a bus with a woman and she's like, "You have to go to Tropea. It's beautiful." And I was like, "Okay, I'll go to Tropea." I went to Tropea. It was beautiful. I had dinner, one of the greatest solo dinners I've ever had. And then I'm walking back and I see this beautiful dress in a store. So I go in the store and I get the dress. And as I'm walking out, there's a little figurine in this cabinet. And I'm like, I've already paid. I don't need these things. I walked out the store and then I was like, I'm going to go back and see what it is. It's an owl. And that owl has been with me since that day. I think it was something like 40 euros. To this day, that owl is my most treasured possession. And it's the same, it's me in a little figurine. Like this little reminder of, what are you doing?
Hayley, what color is the owl?
It's brass and copper.
Oh, it's a brass.
Mhm.
Oh, I thought the same thing.
Because you know that I've created this page called a parliament. A parliament is a gathering of owls, a parliament of snowy owl elders, and it's for older gay men who affirm that they have gifts to offer and who know that they're supposed to look in the present as opposed to in the rearview mirror. And once people sort of got it, every post has been really, I think, spot on. Don't you think, Michael?
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you did it, because here's again, you have so many things that you've done. Here you've had the books, you have your lectures, you have your environment that is so interesting and pleasant, and now you have this parliament of snowy owl.
No.
You know what a parliament also is?
What's
It's
that?
a group of men, or my interpretation, a group of men or a group of people who get together to form a think tank to exchange ideas.
Well,
I
I looked it up just to find out, okay, what do I call this group of owls? I mentioned it in one of my books, and somebody, the reviewer of it, I mentioned it on Being Gay and Gray, that we need to have something like this. And the reviewer said, I searched for it on the internet, I couldn't find it. And so, I don't know if it was Michael who said, well, you need to create it then. You need to, just create a page. And now that I've created it, I've had somebody come and say, well, we need a statement of purpose. We need press releases.
Oh my gosh.
No.
Back up, keep it simple.
Not me.
Brian, but what you can do is have a pamphlet, a book, a diary of everyone's journey or gifts, because I have a friend, when I was living in Galveston, Heber Taylor was the editor of the Galveston Daily News, and he wrote a column every Sunday about living in a farmland. He came from the farm, and it was down home kind of stuff. And I just felt, yes, I'm comfortable. I love this kind of stuff. And I've been after him. He's written other books now, but I've been after him for years to compile all of these essays, and I will help him paragraph them. I mean, chapter them.
Yeah.
And I want to call it, his name is Heber Taylor, and I want to call it Heber Taylorisms. And so he's always said that. I don't know what we could call Brian, Brian's, I don't know.
Brian's parliament.
Listen.
Naughtiness.
Yeah.
Naughtiness.
McNaughty.
I wanted to ask you, in your state of gratitude and gracefulness and wisdom that you find yourself in now, do you ever get angry or confused at the universe?
You're making me tell you things I never tell other people. I don't want to sound like a Pollyanna. I swear I don't. But there are times, especially at this age, and especially when I think about the walker and I've just gotten over bronchitis. What will it be like? Will I be able to maneuver? Will there be people? I assume there will be people, but what will it be like? I just read something that I don't know if I sent it to you, Brian, but Dr. Merritt says we are searching for the place that we came from.
Mm-hmm.
And we came from the essence of spirit.
Mm.
And we're growing enough to understand that we're going back to the essence of spirit.
And always have been.
And always have been. Well, or growing. Well, otherwise, if you don't grow, you die. The plant dies if you don't grow. Relationships die if you don't grow. So at that moment, at my last breath, I want to be I would hope that I'm in a state of mind that is comfortable, that is fearless, that is welcoming, and that is appreciative of the journey. I don't know what that moment will be. In reality, I'll probably be grasping, because to not see the sunrise ever again, oh my God, how could you live without not seeing sunrise? But who knows, the sunrise may be even more beautiful. So that's what I keep thinking. And these thoughts do come in every so often. But if we are what we think, and if we are our thoughts, then why not think about going back to the essence?
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy. It's not easy at all, but they're there.
When you say that it's not easy at all, do you consider yourself courageous that in every moment you're trying to get yourself to that point? Or do you feel like, what do you think is that word or that feeling or that way of being that picks you up and says, let's get back into the present?
I think life is courageous. I think just getting up and living is courageous. I think going to London is courageous without any expectation. I think going to San Francisco is courageous. I think anybody who lifts themselves up and goes to another place is courageous. What a courageous move that my grandfather got on a boat and came to America, met his wife, and that's why I'm here. We had an Austin forum about legacy, and one gentleman said, I have compiled out my family's ancestry and gave it to my nieces and nephews, and nobody cared.
Mm-mm.
And I said, I don't think people think about their ancestors until they're close to becoming one.
Mm.
And so that started my whole appreciation. I will tell you a story that I had my knee operated on. I have a false knee in my right knee, and I could have been put in the hospital room with anybody, talking about baseball or girls or whatever. And I got fortunate that I was sharing this room with an elderly Spanish gentleman who was having a very serious operation. And he told me, I said, tell me, as I do, how are you? Who are you? What are you? How did you get blah, blah, blah? And he said, I have a wonderful family, and it's broken English. And he said, I was scheduled, I don't know where he came from, Caracas or somewhere in the war years. He said, I was scheduled to come to America, to Detroit of all places, to Detroit.
Hey, Detroit.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I was in Detroit for 20 years one day. So he said, I was scheduled to get on the boat at 2:00. And when he got to the port, the guy said, get on this plane. And he said, no, I'm going on the 2:00. He said, get on this 10:00 boat. And he said, no, no, no. And they shoved him on the 10:00 boat. He met his wife on the 10:00 boat.
Hmm.
They came to Detroit, they married, and they had children, and the children came and they invited me to his memorial. Oh, I'm touched.
Mm.
How do you...
You don't, and I don't think you need to explain it. I think it's just open your heart and accept the gratitude. That's the receiving too. Just receive the magic of this universe and how we're all so interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's a benefit of being elderly or older to see that, because I haven't really thought about this until I came to Fort Lauderdale, until I came to Science of Mind.
I think I don't know if it's age or if it's the right time in your life. It's when you're ready to look at it and not be afraid or discount it or, doubt it. Because, I noticed synchronicities where I was just like, okay, I can't stop looking at these when I was in my 30s, and that sort of changed my life. And, I think, without speaking for everybody on a more spiritual, open, gratitude sort of path, you kind of settle into that. And I think that's sort of the path, is being open to going, that's a miracle. I can't explain that. It's a synchronicity. I don't know how it happened, but it is what it is. And I mean, it's manifesting. But this is, I think, the magic of life. And I think this is why we decided to be humans, because who knows if this kind of magic happens in different dimensions. I'm definitely here for it.
Haley,
Agree.
I'd argue, Haley, that I believe that there is a circle of life, and that as we age, we have the perspective that it's really hard to have when you're 20. I think you're an old soul, Haley. I think you see, feel. I mean, you accept the fact that you're clairvoyant. Michael, I told Haley that clairvoyant was also a drag name.
It's more of my drag name, because I'm actually all four of them, but clairvoyant is just the drag name.
Yeah.
I never thought of that. See where my mind is. I'm levitating right now. So,
but I do think, Haley, you're an old soul, and that we connected. Michael, a friend of our mutual friend, said, Brian, I want to pay for a half hour for you with Haley. And okay, you say yes to the universe. Thank you. And we hit it off, and she said, let's do this next week. I said, well, I don't really have, no, it's just you and me talking. And so we started, and I said, well, why don't we record this? People might enjoy the conversation, even if we're the only two people who ever listen to it. So, but I think we connected, Haley, despite our age differences, our sexual orientation differences, our gender differences. Our Haley was born and raised in Zimbabwe.
I was born in the US, raised in Zimbabwe.
Born in the US, raised in Zimbabwe. So very different. I was raised in the Detroit area. So very different life experiences. But as you ask questions, Haley, I think that's spot on. That's spot on. I do think we get to the point of where your Buddhist teacher was, Haley, which is, so what? I mean,
but also, I believe that traveling, you are who you are when you're there, because there's no there. So if you want the same things, Zimbabwe people, citizens of Zimbabwe, want the same thing that we want. They want comfort.
It's human.
It's right. Just universal, and so that gives you a perspective. I was who I am now in London, in any of the places that I went, but I don't think we do it alone, Haley. There are people, there are angels, there are apostles, there are whatever you want to call them, that help and say, why don't you do this? And you say, okay. And okay.
We have 5 minutes, so I just want to let you.
Okay. Well, let me just tell you this story, unless you wanted to talk about something else.
No, I don't want the video to cut off immediately, like as it hits the time marker.
Well, let me go quickly. They say to leave the world a better place than when you leave it, than when you got here. Well, serendipity when I was in a show on the road in San Francisco, we put on an AIDS benefit for the local AIDS organizations. That led to everywhere we went, which was, I was on the road for 2 years because I adored America. We put on a benefit for the local AIDS organization. And my friend Ed, who was instrumental in getting that first one together in San Francisco, which was a big deal. He said, why don't we take this to New York and talk to Equity, the Actors Union, and see what if they could do something about it. Well, it just so happened we did. They were exhausted because they did the night of 100 stars or whatever they did. They were terribly exhausted. I wrote a letter saying, this is what we'd like to do. You could call it Unions Against AIDS or or Equity Fights AIDS. And they said, wonderful idea. Now that was about 1998. And so within that time, they've raised millions and millions of dollars. And I was the networker, I was the messenger. And so I feel more relaxed now because I have left the world. And if I do nothing more, I have left the world a better place. Not me alone, we don't do it alone.
We don't.
And there's still work to do, Michael.
Still.
Oh, always. Oh,
Yeah.
look at what happened. Well, I don't want to talk about it. No.
Well, we have 2 minutes before we end. So just sort of wrapping up. And I think, we started the call of like singles and couples. And I think ending off on the note that we're never alone, regardless of whether you're in a partnership or you're living alone, you're still not alone. You're still guided, you're still comforted, and we are always supported.
Yeah. And we're all connected. Just real quickly, the thing that makes me cry sometimes is watching a foreign film and listening to them sing Happy Birthday, in their language, but the same tune that those two women in the United States came up with, right? I forget where they were from, but that tune started here, but they sing it everywhere around the world. It's so wonderful to feel that connection through that song on somebody's birthday.
Yeah, and we all celebrate birthdays.
Also, Stephen Sondheim has a song called No One Is Alone. No one is alone.
Sweet. How beautiful. Thank you so much, Michael, for this wonderful Friday gift.
Thank you. I'm so glad I was asked to do it. I'm very humbled by it. Thank you.
You're a wonderful guy. Thank you, Mike.
Brian. I hope you have a wonderful anniversary weekend full of celebrations and fireworks.
Yes, they're all in my heart. Great.
Lots of love, and we'll speak soon.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye, all.
Bye.